Hi, these words that I'm now saying to you, you can tell that I'm not reading them and that I haven't memorized them. These words that I'm saying to you now, you can tell that I'm not reading them and that I haven't memorized them. And yes, I have memorized them. I did write them down and I did read them until I memorized them. So I'm kind of being an actor. And being an actor and being a musician and being a dancer, being a performance artist, they all have something in common. And that is that when we practice our craft, our audience has to believe what we're saying as if we absolutely mean it. Whether you're a dancer, you mean what you're saying as a dancer. Do you see what I mean? So obviously it's more obvious as an actor that you're saying something. As a dancer, are you saying something? Well, yes. As a musician, are you saying something? Yes. So that's important. I think probably most of us appreciate that the job of an artist, a performer, is to communicate. So what is the key to that? The way it's often taught is that we must listen to ourselves. I suppose if you're a dancer, you would watch yourself? I don't know. As a musician, we're taught to listen to ourselves and hear whether or not it sounds good, maybe. I'm not sure. Listening to myself, am I listening to myself when I make sure that I am saying something that I've learned or that I'm reading in a way that sounds like I'm making it up? Do I know what that sounds like it's something outside of me, and I know the sound of me when I'm sounding spontaneous, and I copy that spontaneous sound? No, that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is that I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to say something without it being pre-planned, without reading it, without memorizing it. I know what that feels like. I know what speaking feels like. I can do it. I am fluent in my language and I can communicate to you now as I am doing, because I haven't learned all of this. I'm just improvising. I can communicate to you in this natural way. So I know what that feels like. So if I'm reading some words, I want it to feel the same way. If I want it to come across as natural as this and not sound as if I am reading words to you. The way I did just that then was I imagined reading words. I imagined how it felt to read words and not bother to make them sound like I meant them. So that means that I'm really not listening to myself. I can hear myself because I have no choice, but I'm not really listening critically. And most importantly, I'm not listening critically in order to reproduce something that I think sounds natural, or good, or expressive, or whatever. I am simply saying it. And that's how it is playing the piano. So when I improvise, it's like the same as I'm doing now. I'm just going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you this. So I just told you that. I made that up completely. It was completely unplanned. And it was like conversational, wasn't it? It felt like I was saying something. So if I'm playing some Chopin, I want that to feel the same. I want it to feel like I'm telling you it. If I listen to it critically, if I listen to it and try and make it sound natural, it's kind of too late. I've already played it by the time I hear it. It's too late. I can't change it. I can't influence myself. I can't influence my performance. I can't alter my performance because I've already done it. So listening to it doesn't really have any positive effect. It might even have a terrible negative effect. It might even result in me becoming the very thing that I shouldn't be to sound natural and communicative and expressive, I might become self-conscious. And being self-conscious for 99.9% of the population is a disaster for performing. We don't want to be self-conscious. What we want to be is unself-conscious, the very opposite. We want to be natural. We want to express ourselves naturally. So it's an interesting thing when you're not musically fluent, as most people, I suppose, are not. I have to sort of think about this. I teach fluency in music. That's what I teach. I don't really think of myself as a performance teacher when I teach piano and singing. I teach people to be fluent in the language of music. So fluency is like the thing that underpins being able to perform naturally. I wouldn't be able to be an actor, I don't think, and produce anything like a natural result if I wasn't fluent in the language. Now, there are people that can do that sort of thing. They can act in a language they don't speak, and they can find a way to do it. They are very gifted mimics. I kind of call them darksiders a bit cruelly, but that's because, they rely on a very powerful skill. It's a real ability to, by design, if you like, from their ego, produce a performance, something that is outside of them, if you like, something that is, something that they can, if you like, achieve that is pre-planned, or that maybe they do have a critical sense of, a critical awareness of. I don't have the ability to do that, and I believe that 99.9% of the population do not have the ability to do that, or at least not very well. What I need to rely on, which is I think what most people need to rely on, is this thing of being natural. So listening to myself might make me become self-conscious, which is a disaster. But if I'm not fluent in the language of music, if I don't know the vocabulary of music, rhythm cells in the syntax of the groove, and tonal blocks in the keyboard map, which is kind of the syntax or the matrix of tonality. If I don't have that basic fluency, what do I use to make music make sense to me? How do I know if what I'm saying sounds like music? And the answer, unfortunately, is by karaoke, by knowing what music sounds like music, not the vocabulary, not like the words, but the music, the combined effect of all the words into a complete stretch, a whole sentence, or even a whole paragraph. So in that state of playing music according to our external, if you like, idea of what music sounds like, it feels almost impossible not to listen. In fact, sometimes when I'm teaching people to stop listening critically to what they are playing and instead just say it, they object, because they have this idea that listening to themselves playing the piano whilst they're playing the piano is somehow pleasurable, like listening to music. Well, it's not. It's not the same thing. Don't delude yourself. When you listen to music, you're not doing karaoke. You're not listening to that music with a sort of mimetic sense of it. You're not listening with a sense of how it goes. If you join in and start singing along, then fair enough. But if you're just listening, you usually just respond to the music naturally in your body, in a way that is, as I say, natural. It just washes over you. It goes into you. You don't listen to it critically in that way. And you can see this in action when people listen to music, even music they've never heard before. They kind of sway in time to the groove. You can tell that they're feeling it in a natural way in their body. When people sing karaoke, their bodies look jerky and sort of out of the groove. So they'll go, if I'm listening to Happy Birthday, I'll go, just imagine I'm listening, I'll play it. No, I can't play it because you can't see me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. So you can see me swaying with the groove. But people don't do that when they sing Happy Birthday. They sort of go, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. They sort of move with the surface. They don't move with the groove. And this suggests that we listen to music in a way which is more natural and more like the way that I think I say music as a fluent musician, and the way I teach people to do music. So it's tricky when your only way of doing music is kind of by hearing how it goes and what you want it to sound like as a performance outside of you, rather than simply telling it. I guess it's difficult not to listen to yourself, and difficult, therefore, not to be self-conscious. So that's why I advocate fluency. So I know I'm kind of selling my musical philosophy here, and I'm explaining why I think fluency is so important, because it enables us to no longer need to listen to ourselves critically, to play in a way that sounds expressive and natural. Hard to give up though, the desire to check that we sound all right. And of course, we're all fluent, in language, and that desire to check that we sound all right kicks in when we read rather than simply improvise something. When we read a passage, there's a tendency for most of us to suddenly become self-conscious. That's why a lot of people dislike public speaking, because they become self-conscious. So it's a tricky area. This it's an area of interests me very much. How to get people to let go of their self-consciousness, how to get people to simply say what it is they feel when they play music. Which is why I think that's easier really to do. It's easier for me to play in a way that feels very expressive, very natural, when I'm not even trying to make something hang together as a piece. I'm literally just very spontaneously playing the whatever comes into my head. It's sort of rhapsodic, I suppose, might be a word you could use. I'm not trying to hold it together, not even trying to remember any thematic material. So I'm not even bothering to compose on the spot. I'm simply expressing myself. My mum used to call that piddling about, and I suppose in a way it is. It's like doodling. It's like musical doodling, what I was doing there. But I think it gets me in touch with something very fundamental to the way that I really aspire to make music, which is that it's authentic. It just comes from wants to come from a really authentic place. Much more difficult when I'm playing a piece that I know incredibly well. Harder not to listen and judge, but rather just say it. And you probably saw the little stop edit there. That's because I didn't really like what I played. It wasn't very natural. So I'm going to have another go. It came out, the contrast between the way I just played spontaneously and the way I played this, just then, it wasn't good. Let's try again. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just say it. Sometimes I actually vocalize, I at least tend to move. You can't see me moving anything here because I learned to not do that, because my teacher at music college hated it when I moved my mouth. He said I was making strange shapes with my mouth all the time. So I keep my mouth closed, but inside I'm doing things with my tongue to kind of feel like I'm singing it or saying it. I teach people to chant mantras along with the groove. Inward rhythm, flowing rhythm. Inward rhythm, flowing rhythm. And that really helps. That's a really good technique, a really good way to stop you from listening to the result and say it. Say it from the body and soul. Say it from your body with that flow, that wave of rhythm, and from your soul, like a poem. Rhythm is like a poem, isn't it? The groove, I always say groove is like a poem. So this is what I teach, and I guess that it's a little unconventional, really, to put it mildly. compared to this idea of creating a performance which is like almost like a copy of something which is outside of you, where you would listen. As I usually call that karaoke playing or muscle memory playing. So this listening to yourself is a very interesting thing. I think what happens though all the time when we play is that we hear it. So the fact that I can make interesting colors and make the piano speak is very much because of my hearing. You know what I mean? I hear certain things. I know I want to hear a certain sound. If I go, those colors are not sort of surprise to me. That the piano is an extension of me. So the sounds are the sounds that I want to make, just like the sounds we make with our voice are the sounds we want to make. It's amazing how even when I'm working with singers, we can sort of become self-conscious and almost disconnected from our voice. And so we don't necessarily make the sounds we want to make. We can even feel as if our voice misbehaves and doesn't make the sounds that we want to make. So listening objectively or critically to ourselves when we're making music, for me, at any rate, I think is a bad idea. I think what we should always do is play naturally from the body and say it spontaneously, say it rhythmically from the soul.